Hey there, viewer. Welcome. Today I'm going to be attempting the Acrisius challenge. That means we can't be using favor, we can't be using myth units, we can't be using god powers, and we can't be using any of the relics that we find on the map in the campaign. I got the inspiration to call it the Acrisius challenge from Acrisius in the movie Clash of the Titans, where he wages war on the gods. That means we have to go through the whole campaign, which we're doing on Titan, with only human units and mechanical units, and ships. Well, let's get on into it. The first mission starts off pretty easy, of course. All we have to do is just focus on building some towers along the coast. I probably could have built the towers in a better setup, but since this is the first mission, they kind of gave me some slack. After defeating the waves of pirates, they send in the big wave, and then the Atlantean army shows up to save the day. You have to go off and kill the myth units because we're not allowed to use them, and then send in the rest to go wipe out the remaining pirates that are hanging around. During the retreat, they kind of just leave the trident there, but after the cutscene starts to kick in, the game decides to cheat and just give them the trident anyways. The second mission, we were set with just the bare bones since it's still early in the game. We don't have a lot of troops to work with, but they're also not sending a lot of enemies at me at the same time. What sucks about Poseidon in the early part is that if I spawn a dock, I'm stuck with this stupid water horse. I can kill it off, but it just keeps spawning in. The enemy waves aren't too grand or dangerous. As long as I can have someone body block the front, then the archers can just sweep them up. Amos does get upset that I'm stealing all the fish around the island, so he sends over a couple of boats to wipe out the docks of my fishing boats. Damn shame. Once we get pushing into Kamos' little hideout, we break down the town center pretty quickly, and then have to deal with all the Nubian warriors he summons. But we find him on a cliff and start poking him. Mission 3 opens up with pretty much nothing, so you have to go and find the town center after going through some guides. Once the town center is set up, next are the walls. I go inside with the Ares once more because I think Hermes has kind of a dumb hat. Gold on this map is a little rough because you need to go out and find it, so I set up a forward perimeter to start mining the node. After that, I go inside with Aphrodite because personally I'd rather have a half-naked lady than a half-naked dude, but that's up to you. The wall can somewhat stop the guys from coming in and stomping my villagers into the ground, but I just need to stay on top of it and make sure they don't break through, since it's only made of wood. After getting enough resources, I go and test my luck by pushing the right side dock. Having to tear down the wall with just short sticks and arrows makes this quite a difficult task, but with enough persistence, I can finally get through the wall. I gotta reinforce though, because they just take out my guys with those towers, but I head straight for the dock. You don't need to break the towers or the town center to progress, so I just go right for the dock, break it down, and then Agamemnon, that schmuck, can roll in with his guys. I guess it's not too bad, since he gives me catapults and all. And the catapults make this just way too easy. I chip away at a distance on the next dock, and then I can just easily end the mission just taking out one guy at a time. Mission 4 is where I hit the first roadblock in the campaign, where it was becoming a little more difficult. It took me a few attempts, and I'm not going to show every single restart, but it was at least 3 tries with around 4 hours of gameplay. The amount of forces that Troy could supply on land, and the pinks coming in with the boats from the right side made it a little rough. The second attempt is where the enemies slipped past my forces at the choke point, and I couldn't get back in time to protect my base. On the third attempt, there was no way to fight off the boats at this point, and it was pretty much just a game over. The final attempt, I was able to set up a good defense at the choke point, get off the trade caravan, set up a forward base while holding my ships at the enemy docks so they couldn't make any for a counterattack. Soon I was able to get through the front gates, deal with the fortress that they had out front, and start chipping away the Trojan wall with swords and sticks. For Mission 5, it was such a pain in the ass, and it was just not thrilling at all. I just kind of skipped through the explanation here. The AI decided to cheat and kept busting down my walls, but with enough defense, I was able to build up an army, and we got to use the back door for the first time. But after this...
But we can't use the back door. Chi-Chi says I'm not allowed to anymore.
After that, it was just cleaning up the enemy town center, killing off all the villagers and soldiers, and then disabling anything else that would produce any kind of infantry, and securing the win for the mission. Mission 6 is probably the second easiest mission after the first mission in the entire campaign. I thought it was going to be so much worse when I was younger, but probably just because I was bad at the game. Well, it's all just pretty simple. Really what you need is just a ton of villagers, and then the soldiers that they start you with is going to be completely fine. First, Scout Force isn't really a problem, since they don't like my goats and get focused on them for a second, and once I start beating them up just enough, they go and run away, wanting to go right through my entire town and through my villagers, which they get body blocked on, and the towers can just gun them down. After enough wood is collected, I send every villager off to go join the Union and start their own construction careers. The second scouts also have just like a hatred for my goats, but when they get taken and they have no other way to go, they start to just run away. Two of my guys chase them all the way back to the end and die. So, once I get discovered by the scouts, I kick it up to 4 times speed without any cutting at this part to let them see just how long it takes for the next enemy attack to come through. I have no repercussions whatsoever for letting the second scout force go. And then I just go and complete the build of the Trojan horse like nothing ever happened. When the horse is finally done and they roll it into the front gate, you get to legally cross into a sovereign nation and avoid the local police. After stealing a bunch of weapons, we break down the border wall, and Agamemnon shows up with a bunch of stuff to help us finish off the mission, which I turn a part of it into scrap metal. And then using the catapults, I just go ahead and snipe out the fortresses. Easy peasy. Mission 7, we're stuck with no base and no good way of gaining any kind of resources until later. After defeating the silly snake, which makes sounds that I repeat every time I play the game, I just love the way it sounds, you get a bunch of useless centaurs which promptly explode as soon as I get control. Next section, I don't get too much supplies or anything good to use except for the siege tower. The militia are quickly wiped out, so I stack 5 of them. I gotta keep that tower protected as much as I can, and once the first and second area are defeated, I figure out that I'm not fast enough and see that the tower or the fortress has been destroyed. I get the Plenty Vault and just kind of hang out until I get enough materials to start pushing through. I chip away at the enemy towers using Arcantos as bait and letting my own siege tower break those instead. Then they send a bunch of a swarm of scarabs after me, but they get stuck on Mother Nature, so they kind of just vibe and hang out for the rest of the mission. While Ajax is chipping at the wall, he angers a bunch of dogs that are on the other side that didn't have a leash on them, and start to chase him down, which we promptly take care of quite easily. After that, we begin to poke at the Migdol stronghold, which has a known criminal locked up in the background, which I think we probably should have kept him in the background. Something I did with Mission 8 and I tried to do with Mission 9 but gave up afterwards, and I'll explain that later. Got the villagers going and then hid Chiron in the corner since he's a centaur. After a while, trap him just to stay there forever and make sure he can't do anything. We push up on the right side first, getting out of the gates and then poking the beehive to promptly run away and get back to the safety of our towers. After enough of that, we move on to the next part by breaking the fortress so Ajax can have an easier time escaping. With two armies meeting up, we break the last fortress that was in our way and set up a forward base, while Chiron still remains on his vacation. The push into the enemy base wasn't too bad. We didn't see a whole lot of myth units, and they didn't have a bunch of archers to counter the infantry, so we just wiped them out, no problem. I focused on breaking most of the base first, so they couldn't send much stuff after us for a counterattack, and push through the fortresses. It's pretty easy, so we were able to get to the victory. Mission 9, I try to start off having Chiron sit at the entrance so he couldn't do anything like the last mission. And on my first attempt, I saved up as many troops as I could between the waves of them sending random stuff and the enemy coming right. But the humans are just so weak, and these guys have no bonuses to myth units whatsoever, as well as them not being able to have any kind of upgrades on top of them that they send me. The second attempt, I try to save up as much as I can and use Arcantos and Ajax to bait out the damage while the archers finish off the myth units. But I either lose everything or I run out of time. There's just no balance to it. My third attempt is where I take a punch to the gut and I have to use myth units to complete the mission. I hold off on using god powers, but because I'm finally able to get through it with just the myth units. Towards the end of the mission, they also send villagers to repair the ram if you can't kill it fast enough. I knew from the very beginning of this entire thing that this one mission was going to be a huge pain. If you're able to do this mission without using any god powers and without using any myth units, message me on Twitter and then I'll call you a liar for that. With this mission, I'm using Chiron and collecting relics, which go against two things. One, using Chiron because he's technically a centaur, but if I had my way, I would have killed him off by just hitting the delete key. Unfortunately, he's invincible through that. Number two is collecting the relics, which aren't meant supposed to be used, but because I'm not actually getting any kind of bonuses from them, it should be okay. It's also, mission requirement, so we don't have much of a choice. It can go either way, so take your pick. Really, at this point through the mission, or like any point through the mission, it's just kind of walking along. There's not a whole lot to go through, so I guess I'm just going to explain kind of how I see that I'm going to use Chiron for the rest of the campaign until he dies. Spoiler alert, he dies. Yeah, have fun with that, getting spoiled after like a 15-year-old game at least. With Chiron, he doesn't add a whole lot extra to the campaign. He's not super game-breaking, so I don't really see why it's too much of a problem to use him. The Shades I kept alive in the mission because I'm not using them to kill either. They just kind of live here, so it's a little rude to kill them if they already go back. It's just an endless cycle. It's just like repeat, die, repeat, die, repeat. The mission is just pretty much go at my own pace, just strolling along, fighting stuff, moving up, fighting more stuff, collecting relics. I did kill off the two centaurs that I rescued from the cage after they celebrated their freedom. Like, yeah, we got out! And then they just ended up dead. They just rotted there. Have fun with that, guys. Welcome back to hell. Get out of hell and we go into Egypt, which I imagine is gonna be just as hot. This is gonna be the easiest mission in the Egyptian campaign. I don't really know what to say for a script or anything. It's a 20-second part of the video, so yeah, we're in Egypt now. This is probably my most favorite mission in the entire campaign. You start off by saving the guys at the mining station and then only getting half of them back to the town, because that's all you need. The Egyptian part of the campaign is where I abuse the AI pathing with almost more than anywhere else, so the AI has to funnel through while getting shot down by the towers. With a small army getting built up, you gotta move, because at this time, Kemsid's army was already destroyed 2 of the 3 villages that were defending the statue's area. They come at me way more than I expected, so while all that was distracted, I set the sieges to push the tower and then the fortress. The Egyptians are super nice because the workshops doesn't require any kind of favor, so we're able to build siege units unlike any of the other factions. For the second army, I go in and do the same thing, opening the doors to the statue, and then starting to send the sword guys in there. We get the statue to come alive, but because it's not really human, I kill it off instantly. And then, fun fact, you don't actually need the statue to win. The army freezes up in place as soon as they get to the front gates, so they just hang out there, and I abuse the power of the priests and kill off all the myth units that they have in place there. Soon, I follow up with just a bunch of spearmen and start poking the elephants to death. It also turns out that you don't need to kill every single one of them. All you need to do is just wipe out the last elephant, and then the Avenger that's all the way back at the beginning of the mission is still just standing there, not knowing what the hell is going on. Tug of War is probably one of those original ideas for a mission that I can think of. I would love to see more games where you fight each other for a single item that slowly moves. You kill off all the animals, and that'll be problematic later. They give us strongholds, so we have the pleasure of training camel units for once. When we get far enough, they spawn jackals on top of us, which we dispatch pretty easy. However, the flock of giant birds scared the absolute hell out of me. I've never seen that before, but they weren't much of a problem when they dropped off the baddies. That line of animals, yeah, it almost blocked my entire route inside, so it was almost very stressful on how I couldn't get the piece to move. This mission probably gave me the most struggle out of everything in the entire campaign. It was maybe 6 hours of trying to do this mission because the Egyptian infantry was pretty weak starting off, especially since they're coming at me with heavy and champion stuff at the beginning. First attempt in the video is just a test to see where they're coming from. They quickly take me down and I have to restart. The second attempt, I'm still struggling, and the third attempt I just don't even bother. Most of the time I'm able to build up walls and try to set up some towers, but I still just can't get it to work out, and it just doesn't end well for me. I was getting pretty frustrated and tried to make it where I only used the myth units on defense, but even then it was kind of rough. I started to learn I didn't need to make too big of a wall, and I just had to V out a section in order to slow them down. Bringing the wall out from the left also cut out the next closest point of where they could come at me from. The strat was working pretty well, and actually gave me time to prepare and set up defenses. I was trying to clear the way with the siege towers, then stumbled across a problem where they had a whole 2 Son of Osiris's to defend against me and protect the stronghold. So it was actually more difficult to go for the stronghold. And then I just full focused on the main gate. It was way easier. I got Amon onto the boat, got to the prison island after using a little more help, and then I was able to complete the mission. With the prison break going on, our objective is just to survive and hang out on the island. But it doesn't really matter since the transport ship shows up pretty quickly and we can head off to the mainland. After setting up a base and holding out there for a while, we needed to defend against a ground assault and then beach assaults which come from pirate ships. But those quickly end when we destroy the lighthouse up in the northern part. I stack up a bunch of troops into the transport as soon as I can get the resources, and then head off to attack the main base where they hold the piece. The piece gets moved after a certain amount of time between teleports and like the bases, but as soon as you get a hold of it, it doesn't teleport anymore. So as soon as we got in there, we were able to secure the piece, and once claimed, it was just going to be sitting there forever. One problem that I had was those damn camels were too stupid to path correctly, and they just kept going around every little bit. It was so annoying. Eventually, they were able to figure it out.
You've headed down the path of dreams. Unfortunately for you, Pelagius suffered night terrors from a young age.
Arcantos has some weird dreams, but honestly, last night I dreamed Gordon Ramsay became a detective on cases where the victims were poisoned and had to solve crimes by figuring out how the chefs cooked the poison into the food. So I can't talk too much. After all our friends die, we get an army outside of a rock wall, which we need to break open. This can be a pain since it's all myth units you need to fight, and they'll just drain through the weak spearmen that they give us. But just target the myth units with Arcantos and Castor, and then the priest should clean them up pretty good. Castor doesn't actually count as a unit that will keep you in the game, so if he's the only one left, it'll end the mission. Eventually getting to the wall, I put the catapults as close as possible because we get ambushed from the middle parts. And I let the spearmen become the meat shield to protect the catapults. Don't be confused by the lightning, it's the game that's putting it down, so I have no control of it, so it doesn't count. We break through the wall and get into a different map, which I don't think I've ever seen the game do before or after this. Getting to the mainland, we start to set up our base very carefully. It took me about 4 tries off stream to try to understand what I'm doing so I don't look like a complete fool on stream. Hence, complete, because I am a fool. They said a lot of stuff after you, but with enough strategy, finally get the base up and running and then push in with an army to attack them. They have lightning statues, so they will rip through the infantry and you'll have to just keep sending more or eventually break the statues as quickly as possible. With the second army, we push once more and break in and break down. I say break a lot. We're tearing down the fortress that is the last big defense of the area. There was probably a third army that I had to build up, but once we were deep into the base, we started chipping away at the enemy structures that could spawn in more that we had to fight, and it was easy enough to tear down the one. A pretty easy mission, like there's absolutely no challenge. Yeah, they try to jump scare you with a couple of boats and some giant turtles, but they never actually landed with any trying to break my base. I built up what I needed, stacked about 10 siege towers full of people, and then set sail for the island. I brought villagers with me to set up a forward base to begin the battle, and then just kept it going. They didn't have much to stop us from landing, just the 2 fish that just hung out the entire time. And then we pushed into the town, got through the town center, got through the gates, moved forward, had the perfect flow of troops to reinforce us, and we just kind of hit and won. Like, there was absolutely nothing. This was like a vacation mission.
We get stuck with Chiron the Freak once again. With the town center found, we get things set up and start to explore to find a nearby temple to get the gold from it. This is probably the first time I've actually used the priest to this extent in the campaign because of the challenge that I'm doing. We wall off the outside roads and leave the one closest to us open, which should be fine. Right after I start the tower defense section, then they send the first wave at us. While over preparing to take the tree, I noticed when the mummies also tried to come for us, they went all the way around through the town and didn't stop until they got to a certain point to activate like their trigger. The tree is way less defended than I expected it, so I collected all of my villagers and turned it into a stronghold, like the entire area like it's supposed to be. It's pretty much just a waiting game. As I broke apart certain walls, now the AI had to just path around the entire map and slowly try to get to me. Walls are absolutely busted in the Egyptian campaign because the AI is just like so slow and they need to try to go around everything. With all this wood collected, now it's time to start burning, man. We're back with some Greek troops, and this time we're blessed with them having champion equipment. We gotta destroy all the stuff down here, and they start trying to build a stronghold, which I've never seen before. Once getting through everything, we start the stealthy part and head through down the Death River. When we get to the other side, we're welcomed by the locals who in reality would have been wiped out with how close they are set up to the town, like with their, like the fortress. The plan is to send a ton of villagers back to mine gold forever and get food going with the little bit of fishing that we have nearby. With all the trees, we got plenty of lumber. I wasn't paying attention and they sent some scouts which spotted me, but it's a scripted event so it's not really that bad. And they don't pose any kind of threat because they don't send anything on the ground towards me. I take siege ships, which are absolutely busted, and make my way down to the coast and just destroy everything along the water side. My first raid ended pretty quickly, but I did get to the enemy town center and cleared out some things, so it was a lot easier the next time. Seeing how they're mainly sending bugs and elephants, I just sent in the swarm of spearmen. And then, like before with Kamos on the, what was it, the second mission, I just sent in and just poked him with a bunch of sticks.
Well, I get to poke people with hot sticks all day.
Needing to act fast on this mission, I get the villagers going as quickly as possible. The maze of walls start to get set up and I begin to cut down the trees dividing the two forces. I think this mission is where I abuse the maze system as much as possible, making a death run of absolute hell for them. Getting the left side completely walled off will help me with the trees being gone, so the AI will have to path right through my right side base and try to get it to my left. My plan works as the trees get cleared out and we can meet up with the two armies. My siege towers go in to break the towers up ahead for an easy approach. Our Kantos and Ajax finally arrive, and I push into the city with pretty much like relative ease, just like nothing. This really wasn't that tough of a mission and ended the campaign with a bit of a disappointment. For how much the Egyptian campaign was just kicking me in the butt, it kind of ended with a lot of lackluster approach. I will say this, that the Egyptian campaign probably has like the best music to play with, and might have been technically easier because it was giving me siege towers and stuff to work with, or catapults because of the workshop didn't need any kind of favor, but it was definitely the roughest. The game sends us on a little trip which I consider just to be filler content. I don't really see how this mission actually progresses with the story at all. I guess you could try to argue like, oh yeah, you went and saved Odysseus and then Odysseus came back to save you, but like in the Odysseus story, he got out of this situation perfectly fine on his own. I don't know, I haven't read it in a while or seen the movies in a while. But I feel like this is just really not needed. I'm pretty sure it's just a shout out or in a reference to the actual stories and not the fake stuff that Arcantos has been doing. Well, time to narrate the actual game. The maze health probably could have been done a little bit better, but I managed to just maintain my base well enough. I get my force moving, take out the little fort, or I guess like the little town that is just to the bottom there, so that they don't send in stuff from behind me, and then push break down the fortress. I thought there was more to this mission afterwards, like if you break the fortress, then you start the fight with the lady, because I specifically remember her shooting lightning. The mission just kind of ended abruptly, so I don't really know what to do with this. Time to begin the easiest part of the entire campaign. The Norse section of the game is so easy, I don't think I failed a single mission except for the first one, because I was just goofing around. We section off a large portion to give ourselves some good land to start a choke point on the left side. You're going to see a pattern where the Hussars are my dominating unit on the battlefield. They're a hero unit and strong against normal infantry as well. They also have like names to them, which makes them even cooler. They might be my favorite unit in the whole game. The nearby giant temple spawns the horn guys and cheat by hitting my walls directly instead of following the path, so I need to assault that pink base as soon as possible. My army gets demolished, but I have just enough to break down the temple and then get out. I didn't notice until now, but Ajax and Chiron are nowhere to be seen. I don't even know if there's an explanation of why they aren't here. The Greens are next, and I have to stop them from spawning more frost giants and big boy giants, and then we push on to the Reds. The Reds' housing units are all outside, and with those gone, they can't spawn too much, and it's just wiping them out pretty easy. We tear down the last temple, and we win the mission. On this mission, we have to go and find and take over the town center, since we don't start with anything. It's pretty close by, just to the north, and once we go through those two giants that were protecting it, we can start setting it up. And as always, you need to start walling off certain parts of the map to let the enemy funnel through, otherwise you're just going to get swarmed from all directions. The farms get going and the trees get chopping. There's where I remember a section to the top right that had a bunch of relics, which I can't use anyways, I just wanted to go find it. But as soon as I busted through the walls, all the mummies came piling out and wiped out those dwarves that were nearby. Well, after some more exploration, I was ready to go, push through to get to the forge. Really only fighting myth units here, so the Hussars were the best way to go. After establishing many forward bases that all kept getting wiped out until I was able to finally hook on, I started chipping away at the enemy. I got ambushed at the forge when they spawned in a bunch of fire giants, so my guys drank their fire resistant potions and just stepped on in to beat down those fire giants. After that, and establishing way more towers and walls than I probably needed to, they didn't really come after me, and I started tearing down their base that they had to the north. And then, funny enough, as soon as I broke their last building, the market, the mission just ended, which was an extreme surprise to me because I still had 7 minutes left on the timer. We finally meet up with Skulk, who gives us our favorite type of mission, escort missions. Oh boy. This mission I had to do off stream a couple times just to make sure that I was able to do it, and I finally figured out playing after about the 4th try. You go with the same strategy we've been abusing. The walls go up and the Hussars start to spawn in. Once the crumbled wall takes enough damage, they send in a huge army from every direction, so it's just having to slow them down before they can get to us. Axemen come in clutch to do damage overhead while the guys chip away at the wall. I kept using Arcanto's Shout and cycling that to give them extra chip damage so that they couldn't get to us before we broke through it. Once we got through, it was just a mad dash with a couple of giants in the way to get to the exit. The game uses a tree burning god power, so it doesn't count towards us since the game is using it itself. There's not really a lot of strategy to do on this level. There's just 3 tribes that hate all of us because we have the flag, and so we just need to kill the leaders to win. All you gotta do is bait out the tribes one at a time, and then take out the Hussar with the spy eye on top of them. and then you get an instant army of whoever's left that you didn't kill. It's so easy that this is probably the shortest mission that you do in the entire campaign if you don't speed run that one mission where Monroe needs to get to the prison. Yeah, I know the strat. Speed run that mission and finish it in under a minute. Don't know, look it up. It's kind of interesting. Arcantos then calls out Skulk at the very end of the mission when we complete everything, and we get the best laugh in the entire game. Turns out, Skulk is an asshole. If you don't know what laugh I'm talking about, you gotta go back and look it up. We're starting to get close to the end of the game. The Norse campaign's almost done. It's so much easier compared to the other two. We meet up with one of the cooler heroes in the campaign, which I wish we could keep after and replace the freak in the group, but we'll be done with him soon. We need to defend the town and gather up enough supplies to take down the first transport well, which will then give us full control of the town. The second settlement is in need of some defenses, and we can quickly set up some towers as instructed, then go up to the south and break the temple that's spawning giants down there. After all that, it's a rescue mission for the last village where we need to save the dude's daughter who is being held hostage in a large stronghold of giants. As always, with enough bodies, we can break through the walls and all of the forts and then save the lady and continue on into the next mission. Funny enough, she actually has a special icon for her character, which I don't think I've seen before in any other one. The Well of Erd is probably the last of the Norse missions that gave me trouble, and even then it wasn't bad. So long as you're able to set up the walls like always and make choke points, it's pretty easy until you need to push for the final phase. They do manage to sneak a force into my own area, but with the town center shooting at them and a little bit of troops that I had, it was pretty easy to defend. Once the walls are up and it's just a waiting game to get my troops going to push the enemy well. I did trap a enemy horse rider on the right side of the map, so it was kind of funny just watching him ping pong around inside those walls trying to find a way out. I went to test out the enemy fort with just a few Hursars to see what I was going up against, and maybe even chip down a few of their defenses, but they got wiped out pretty quickly from the army that was defending the area. I sent the stronger amount of forces that I had to see if I was able to stand up against them, but they quickly wiped me out. With more determination, a second army came up and started to push through, tearing down the enemy base and heading towards the well. They did try to send a fire giant ambush out of the well to get me, but they couldn't match up to my hammers, and so we move on to the next area. Beneath the surface, we start off with the ruins of the enemy base that we just assaulted. Needing to use the well to get back to the hell pits as many times that we've done before. Another giant ram is going nuts on the door, but this is actually pretty easy compared to the last one that we had to break down. The only gold supply is in the hell zone, so that's where we send all the dwarves. There will be an enemy attack coming in from the overworld, but not one from the hell world, so we're able to defend the up top while not having to worry about the down below, like at all. Until we're ready to attack the base, and then we get ready pretty quickly. The Hursar army gets moving and just plows through any defenses that they have in the way, just any kind of unit that was just standing there, gone. The ram is so easy to beat that you don't even need to destroy it like the first time. All you have to do is just defeat all the enemy units surrounding it, and then the mission ends, and we get granted the best cutscene in the entire game. I bid farewell to Chiron, the one who's been conflicting with this entire game. You know, can't use myth units, but also can't destroy Chiron, so it's kind of like a 50-50. So we'll just, we'll chalk it up to a draw, I guess. Goodbye, Chiron. The gang meets up with the dwarves that were here before, and we find them chopping away at a giant twig. We have to defend them until the next group arrives, which come pretty quickly, and then escort both ends together to win the mission. We kill off the lady riding the horse and again get the Hursars moving. There's a lot of myth units between the two forces, so it's going to need you taking it slow and chip away at them with the main group. We get reinforcements with gold, but they get spawned right next to the ram site, and once the army there starts to move, it just spawns them into a kill zone. When the Nidhogg shows up, it takes me by surprise, and I have to get Reagan Leaf back to deal with it, which is pretty easy. It's not too bad, as long as I can keep it distracted by a dancing unit in front of it, which happens to be the last of the throwing axemen that I have. Eventually the path gets cleared, so it's time to just like chop away at the twig and finally get that handle made, and begin moving the hammer to meet up with them. The Ramgate army starts to approach, so we're crunched for time. As soon as the handle is made, we start to move all the dwarves in as a distraction. When the two pieces are met together, Thor introduces this land to a nuclear explosion, which our heroes somehow survive. After walking off nuclear explosion, we head to the southeast to find an old abandoned mining town. We don't need to worry about setting up too many defenses and building an army just yet, so we're just trying to bust out as many resources as possible. Walling off to two large entry points just to coax the enemy to the maze like every other mission that we've done previously. Always want to get that set up. Later on, part of the enemy force decides it wants to cheat and try to break down those frontal walls, but I had a feeling this was going to happen since it's not the first time, and I triple stacked them. They sneak an underworld portal behind us and get some troops to attack my villagers, but eventually Odysseus decides to show up and finally be helpful in the game. Killing off the chunk of the army because let's just say they froze to death from not wearing any kind of shirts. We find the portal and start to head north to Gargarensis. With a small base to feed us troops, we continue to push on, and then we win the mission, getting the cutscene from Make Love Not Warcraft from South Park. We come back to find Atlantis is on fire. The goal is to rescue 15 Atlanteans, so we head to the north and set up a one-lane base. We just need to hold a choke point until we get enough troops and resources to then push the rest of the area and save more villagers. With what I would say maybe the majority of the villagers in the area all saved, we load them up and ship them off to the drop-off point that's on the bottom side of the map where we spawned in from. It's really not that good of a mission, honestly. I feel like it's kind of filler, but it exists, so we're bringing it up and we're talking about it. I do kind of feel bad for the rest of the Atlanteans that we just kind of left behind. They ain't gonna be making it off this island, I can tell you that. Well, we finally made it to the last level. As a total, I think this was my 8th stream of doing this campaign, and I was just exhausted after the whole ordeal. It took me about 22 hours of gameplay to get this whole thing done, and this one mission alone I think was its very own stream. It took me maybe 5 or 6 tries, I can't remember, it was so long ago. Even in offline trying to do this to test out strategies, it took me a while. And I never got anything solid down. I did my best, but on Titan difficulty it was just pretty rough. And I know that's my own fault for setting it like that, but I really wanted to just like challenge myself. Eventually I started to use the Son of Ra. Or is it Son of Ra or Son of Osiris? One or the other. Which I was trying to argue with the chat that it was really just like a pharaoh and he was given the power, so he was still a dude underneath, and I didn't give him that power, so it was technically okay, but it's up to you to decide. It's what I needed to get past the part, and on top of the first, that first mission with the Hell Gate, I think it was mission 9, where I started to use the myth units there. That's one strike. I guess you could say, you know, Chiron was also another strike, since he's not really a human. Even through this entire thing, I was always calling him a freak. I just didn't really see him as, like, that great of an asset to not use them, really, or use them, or whatever. And then I guess using the Son of Osiris or Son of Ra, I can't remember the name. I guess that's strike 3, so you know, I guess this whole thing was a bust. But, you know, I had fun. When I started doing this whole thing, I was starting all the way back mid-August of 2024, and I was just extremely busy or lazy at the time over the entire time of taking this into, you know, an effort to put it in and get the whole thing done. It's my very first attempt at making this kind of video and doing this kind of thing, so, you know, the quality might be pretty poor. I love this game. I've always had such high regards for it, even when I was playing it in my youth, and I really do mean like in the early 2000s when it was released. And back then when it was like on the disc and had its like dedicated servers and stuff, it wasn't on Steam. The community was so alive, and it was amazing, all the custom games that people made. They had like hide and seek, they had like tower defenses, huge RPG style worlds. They even had like a Sim City kind of builder. It was amazing. This whole game is just like such just like an inspiration, I feel like, to many other games. I mean, if you think I failed the challenge, then I guess I can't really argue with you too much. Using Chiron and then the Hell Gate on Mission 9 and the Son of Osiris, it's you know, it's what I had to do just to get past the things and continue with the stream. Like I said, 22 hours. It was rough. You know, but it was fun. I had a lot of fun doing this challenge. You know, this game has given me so much, and I wanted to do something new and challenge myself with it. I want to go forward and do a lot more with this game and see what I can do. What else with, you know, do more with it. I'm saying do a lot. I want to see what else it offers. I know this whole video is running pretty long, almost a full hour, and just, you know, thank you so much for watching it. If you got this far, I really appreciate your time, and you know, if I was able to entertain you at all, then awesome. Glad to get that done. I could have cut down the fight with the statue and saved like 4 or 5 minutes, but I wanted to make like one last homage to the video. They put in an effort to get all this set up, and you know, we're chipping away at it with just little infantry instead of using the god power to instantly end the fight. I mean, if the community wants me to go back and try to redo those missions, and then maybe even redo the whole campaign, I'd probably do it on a lower difficulty, just to go through it quicker and not use Chiron. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's just that would take some time. I do have a couple plans, you know, some things in mind of what to do more with this game and see what else I can get out, but as for now, like, this is it really. This is all I have for this entire video. I know it's kind of weird to see me doing this on the older game when Retold is out at this point, and you know, this final recording I'm doing at November 14th. But like I said, I started this months before that, you know, Retold was out. But thank you so much. I appreciate everything.